Hello, everybody. This is Wolf of Dimensions, bringing back the Week of Terror. I couldn't put up the full thing before. I did release the thing as a little Halloween special piece. But here I am, doing the full thing, releasing this Halloween from 1978, They Live, and as well as The Evil Dead, and Dracula from 1931. So, moving on from that to just Halloween, I'd recently seen this in theaters, actually. The theater where I live was showing it for, Halloween. I'd have to say that John Carpenter, to this day, is probably my favorite director. And this is just another example of one of his greatest works ever. I mean, he's probably most famous for this movie, but I have to admit that for the longest time, I never considered this a Carpenter movie. Like, when I think of a Carpenter movie, I think of The Thing. Like, when I think of his directing style, that's what I go to. To me, it's a masterpiece. I love Halloween. This is a great movie. I want to go ahead and say that. It is not my favorite of the genre, and Michael Myers is overall not ultimately my favorite slasher. That goes to Jason Voorhees. I'll have to do a Friday the 13th marathon review at some point, I'm sure. But, as much as this is not my top of the line, Carpenter is masterful. He's at the top of his game, and the music piece he made is iconic and will live for potentially centuries. The big thing about this movie is atmosphere. Most Carpenter movies, including this one, have an atmospheric build throughout 2/3 of the film. And that's what they focus on. They focus on building this sense of dread slowly. Like with Laurie being stalked by Michael, we don't know why, we don't understand why, but we're wondering when something's gonna happen. When I was watching this in the theater, honestly, so many cues, so much music, this is a movie that's hard to explain, for me at least, why it's so good, because there's so many little details. There's so many little things that when you pull back and you look, it's hard to like name each one. And I did love it. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see in the theater and in that kind of environment, the way it was supposed to be portrayed in first watching. Because when you're in a dark theater, in that dark setting with that music, you get a slight anxiety feeling. You're looking around. There was only one other dude in the theater with me. I was looking around and everything, the music stings were going, I was like, this is creepy. And that's kind of what makes it so much fun, is that it was just a fun tale, a fun Halloween tale. I'd have to say that Carpenter using a William Shatner mask, I know that people know that, and some people don't. That was an interesting take, and I'm surprised that mask has become so iconic. Because I knew William Shatner from his mask before I ever knew him for Star Trek. So that was an interesting thing I found out a few years ago. I'm going to have to rewatch this film. I plan to. But, Michael Myers is not, a huge killer. He doesn't run around and have a body count. He stalked one set of kids, pretty much because they insulted his driving skills, and went around and killed them out with quality of kills. His whole thing is quality. How much terror he puts his victims in, the situations he puts them in, and just how he does it. It's almost masterful. It's like an art class to him, which is a thing of where that may mean something. Donald Pleasance as Loomis, probably one of my favorite, Van Helsing characters. Dr. Loomis is, I don't really like Michael Myers that much. But, Dr. Loomis just hits the ball every time. It's like I always wanted to see him in other, do a Van Helsing and appear in other series. Imagine him showing up at, Camp Crystal Lake or Elm Street. It just feels like he has that knowledge of the evil, and it's just fun whenever he's on screen. You stop thinking about the movie, and you just listen to him. I love that too. The characters, Carpenter isn't always the best with characters. I'd have to say that the teens in this movie are pretty much the standard annoying, bratty teens that are entitled, whatever. The ones that you expect to see in a film like this. And Laurie is the best character. I mean, she's very quiet and she doesn't talk much, and at the end of the day, she doesn't do much for the majority of the film, but it all centers on her being the quiet kid, her being the kid that's not supposed to do anything, but still coming out on top and surviving. This would come out with some other films. I mean, a year later, Alien did the same thing with Ripley, who was a no-nonsense, by-the-rules part of the crew who didn't have any major impact until the later half of the film. This became the final girl trope eventually, and it twisted around some, because by the later half of the 80s, the final girl was the girl next door that was cool, but no one just wanted to talk to her because she was the girl next door. Another example, Friday the 13th, the first one, Alice. She was another one of those tropes. She was also at the start of it, and it worked pretty well. Those three original final girls were a masterclass in character design in their own way. Ripley, of course, being the one that fought back, and I'd have to say, out of final girls from the 70s, 80s horror trope, Ripley's got to be number one. But that doesn't take away from Laurie or Laurie's story. Like, throughout the film, she's being pressured and pulled in one direction or the other, and basically she's implied to be, a useless character, quote unquote, a useless friend, she's good for watching the kids, she doesn't do the dance or nothing. But when the moment mattered, she was able to stand up, protect two kids she was watching, and do more to Michael Myers than anyone besides Dr. Loomis pulled off in decades. That goes for the new movies too, even though I'm not a huge fan of the new movies. I'm not a huge fan of most of the sequels. For me, I like Halloween 1 and 2. That's it. That's what I prefer in my Halloween lore. Sometimes I let Halloween 4 go off because I do like the niece angle, and I liked that she was trying to escape from him. Of course, 5 and 6 were terrible though. But talking about the sequels is another thing with this film. There's such a purity to this film. It's kind of like most of other of Carpenter's works. There's this inner purity when you watch Halloween, or when you watch The Thing, or when you watch Big Trouble in Little China. There's this sense of purity. And it's hard to get that with films that are in the slasher genre, because most of them are gimmicky, and they try to be gimmicky. But Halloween is a movie that makes me think about just the month in general. That's why, I've got off topic a little bit, talking about tons of different other things related to it in the slasher thing. This movie is like the perfect movie to remind me of why I love horror. And that's hard to pull off, because it's literally the ultimate Halloween movie, in my mind. A lot of people say Trick or Treat, gore to be gore, shock to be shock. This is the classic, the original, The Boy Who Went Home. Most of my other reviews for this week are not going to be as loose as this one. I kind of did it on purpose, and I know a lot of people may want a serious review, but this is just ultimate Halloween comfort film for me. It's what makes me want to do stuff like this and to make videos. And I'd have to say, you owe it to yourself to watch this once. Anyone who has not seen this, anyone who's not dug into it, you owe it to yourself to watch the original. It's kind of like Jaws. You got to see it at least once. With that, I'd like to say that great film, John Carpenter, favorite director, great characters, great fun, lots of slashes and lots of kills and lots of build up. So if you're wanting to be in a creepy mood, be on your couch, the lights out, dark at night, the wind slowly blowing, put you on some Halloween, because can't go wrong with that. And with that, I'm gonna head off now. Next review will be soon. Thank you for watching. This is Wolf of Dimensions signing off. Have a great and spooky Halloween.